Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Hello, listener. It's Lara Jane, and I have been waiting for this interview for weeks. I am so excited. We are going to talk about impulse spending. And you may not have a problem with it, but I do. And so Makeda has come on to give me some points and tips, and hopefully they help you too on how to curb our impulse spending. All of the information about Makeda, how to get a hold of her, her bio, are all right there in the show notes ready for you. And so, Makeda, help keep my porch clean from all these Amazon boxes.
Yes. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to do.
What do you need to do? Oh my gosh. Impulse shopping is like this thing that we do all the time, that we don't realize that we do unless someone points it out to us. It's a habit that's so ingrained in us. It's ingrained in who we are, just like every other habit, right? There are a lot of habits that we have that we don't even think about it. It's just natural. We just do it. We get the cue and the behavior. It triggers the behavior, right? And so impulse shopping is no different. It's the same thing. I like to define it as making an unplanned purchase that is not necessary. And it's often triggered by something, whether that's a targeted ad on social media, an influencer, an email from your favorite retailer, a discount in the store, right? It's triggered by so many external factors, but it's also triggered by internal factors as well. So a lot of studies have shown that when we impulse spend, it's because we are in this emotional state. We are experiencing something. Either we are bored, we're anxious, we're stressed, right? And it's usually emotions like that cause us to want to go out and do something, right? And so the biggest thing with impulse shopping, if you are an impulse spender and you have realized this about yourself and you've realized that I've lost all control, right? You have to become very self-aware, very self-conscious of what is happening before you even make that purchase. Why did you leave your home to go to that store? What is triggering you right now to pick up this thing, this physical thing, and put it in your cart, or to click on that ad and put that in your online cart, right? You have to figure out what is happening at the moment. And once you're able to figure that out, that is, I would say, the beginning of just curbing this habit and getting to a point where you can break it, right? Because impulse, like I said before, it's so ingrained in you that it takes work to just stop it. You know, not everybody can just quit cold turkey. And it works like every other habit that we have, right? And that's why they say old habits die hard. So as you are just learning what is triggering you, that's when you can start to make some changes. Some of the tactical things that I like to share are implementing some type of rule. So like a 3-day rule, a 5-day rule. Let's say you see something like, oh, I want that, right? It's just like your impulse is just like, oh, you know? And so I would say to just pause on whatever it is you're feeling. 3 days. Take some time, think about it. You want to ask yourself questions like, do I have something like this already that's currently working? Does what I have at home, is it finished yet? So if you're thinking about skincare and body care, hair care, does my bottle of shampoo, is it done or is it still full, right? You want to ask yourself questions like, why am I really buying this? Like what's at the root cause of why I want to buy this? Right. And you want to come to some like real answers too, that could hopefully lead you to not making that purchase. Yeah. So the 3-day rule. Just stop, pause, think about it. And then if you come back 3 days later and you say, you know what, I still need this, I still want it, then by all means, it's no longer an impulse purchase. You've thought about it. You've put some critical thought into it. You were intentional about finding these answers, and you decided that this is where you're at. You want this thing. And then the next thing too, I would pay attention to, like I said, one of the big things is to ask why, right? And there are so many reasons why we purchase things. You want to know, am I being driven by society? Is this a society standard that I want to live up to? Am I envious of something that somebody else has? Am I not satisfied with what I currently have, right? And these are really deep questions that they are important to ask yourself, especially if you're serious about, breaking this habit. So you want to ask those questions. You want to find out things like, you want to know for yourself, like, what are your values? And your values will help to put these purchases in the right context, right? So if your value is efficiency, for example, although this purchase may not seem necessary to someone else, it's necessary to you because it goes along with your values, right? So that's something to think about as well. The main goal is really for you to get to a point where you are being just a little bit more intentional, right? And less impulsive. You want to get to a point where self-control is working. You're allowing it to do its job instead of your emotions. And when you allow your emotions to lead you, or when you allow, these internal and external factors to lead you into making buying decisions, a lot of times you find that people experience guilt, or they experience shame or regret, buyer's remorse. You realize 2 weeks later, oh, I'm going to send this back, right? But if you had taken the time to just really do that deep thinking work at the beginning before you made that purchase, you're going to save yourself some of those other emotions after actually making the purchase.
My husband's amazing at delayed gratification is what he calls it.
Yeah.
I want this, but I'm going to wait. And he is so good at waiting. It can be years. I like this 3-day rule. I might meet 3 days. Yeah. But yes, he'll like, but I've been thinking about buying this for years. And I go, if you're buying it, I know you have. He's really good at it.
And that's all about discipline too, and that's where the self-control comes in. When you are purchasing something based on emotions, what happens is you get back to the house, right? And you realize that it's just temporary. That feeling, that excitement of something new, it's just temporary. And scientifically, what's actually happening is you get a temporary boost to your dopamine, right? So you feel good, but only for a little bit. It's only temporary. And so what we do when we impulse spend, we're using impulse shopping to regulate our emotions. We're using impulse shopping to say, this is what I can do so that I'm no longer feeling bored, so that I'm no longer feeling anxious, so that I'm no longer feeling sad or depressed or, whatever that emotion is that you're feeling, right? You use impulse shopping to create almost like the negative, the opposite emotion. So now you're excited, now you're happy, now you're ecstatic. And you come home, you have all these bags of stuff, and that only lasts for so long, right? So that's why it's important to, as you are on this journey of curbing that habit and becoming more aware of what is triggering for you, that you learn new behaviors that you can sub for impulse shopping. So that can be taking a walk, right? That could be going fishing, whatever your hobbies are, reading a book, something that would, and not just for the sake of, subbing a new habit in there or a new behavior in there, but something that will give you the same thrill and the same emotion that shopping would. That's definitely a little bit of the science that's a part of that. So just learning how to sub better habits for this current habit that you have.
I love the substitute because I don't think you can just get rid of something without replacing it. Because that just kind of leaves that hole. And though you might think you did it, eventually it starts to fill in. So I'm with you on the replacing part.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things you said a little bit earlier was about, do I really need this? Am I out of the shampoo or am I not? And it kind of took me back to, I do have a habit of 1 is none and 2 is 1. Because I love that being out of something. I hate it if I use the last of the shampoo today and I can't get to the store for a while. So I always, when one gets empty, the other one opens and it's replaced. And it's just habitual. And I always buy it in 2s. It's funny. Like, I always have, like, are we out of this? No, we're not.
Yes, because you've purchased 2. I think that, as human beings, we're inquisitive, right? We always want to know what's out, what's up and coming, right? And for skincare and hair care and body care, especially for women, we tend to kind of want to try a lot of the new things that's out. A lot of brands are launching something every day, right? And so I used to almost be like a product junkie. And I have curbed that considerably. And I only try like one thing at a time. So I have to use it. And so that's the strategy that I have implemented so that I'm able to use the things that I'm actually buying instead of just allowing it to pile up and buying more and buying more. And sometimes, you forget you had this and you went and you bought another one. So I'm always about, I have one line of products. Maybe I have 3 products in the line and I have to use all of it. Not literally all of it, but I have to be able to get down to the bottom before I say, I'm going to go and, try something else instead of having 3-4 lines of products that I can't get through,
So let's pretend like this is lipstick. So because I'm trying to understand what you're saying. So I'm not sure if I want the berry or the very berry or the mauve. And so you're saying you get the berry and you use it till it's done before you try the very berry.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah. And it's so every product is different, right? So for women, if you wear makeup every day, right, you may have an everyday lipstick, right? And you may want, a date night lipstick. You may want an event lipstick, right? So lipstick, I would say there's room, there's opportunity there to have more than one, but not excessively, right? I would say 3 lipsticks at a time. It's not a bad idea, just for variety, right? But yeah, with your skincare, perhaps you're targeting one thing at a time, and so you have particular products that you use at one time until you're no longer targeting that skincare issue. But I think makeup is a little bit different, although there's a lot of room for us to be perhaps a little bit more simplified, where we are not purchasing every single product that launches.
Okay, so here's one of mine is kitchen gadgets.
Yes.
I have every kitchen gadget I think I want. And then another one shows up and it's like, ooh, that's cool. I got to have that. And my husband will say, where are you going to put it? I hate finding things in the drawers because they're so full. Because they're layered in there. You got to have one of everything.
Well, let me ask you this, because I am a big cook. We have 3 boys and we have another one on the way. So we'll very soon be a family of 6. And so we do a lot of cooking. So I love kitchen gadgets as well. And I love being in the kitchen. Do you cook a lot?
I do not cook every day, but my kids are all grown and out of the house. We do have family meals, and they always say I cook too much. As you know, you got to have variety because one person might not like it.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely definitely one of the things that we say to ourselves to accommodate whatever it is we want to do. But in terms of kitchen gadgets, I would say if you have something in your kitchen that already does that job, you don't need to introduce something new that's, just like very specific. If you have, I don't know, a chopper, a vegetable chopper, you don't need to purchase a chopper that only chops carrots, for example, So I think just being savvy with the gadgets that you do have, and understanding how you can be as efficient with them as possible, and just using it wisely, and not just buying a gadget because it's trendy or it's the new item on the block or there's a discount for it, and you just have to engage with the sale. I used to be like that. I used to be at Macy's every single Wednesday. I was an impulse shopper from 2005 to 2016. And I was at Macy's every single Wednesday on their sale days just to engage with their sales. I didn't need anything there. And eventually it did become too much. Impulse shopping has this way of like getting rid of your responsibility because you kind of forsake other things that the money should be spent on, whether it's other bills, just more important things than clothes and shoes and, whatever else, just so that you could take advantage of that 40% off. And it's just not the best thing. It's good to engage with sales, but only if you need that product, only if you've been thinking about it. You know what? I've really been thinking about this new gadget that would make cooking easier, or it would make food prep easier, or, whatever, just going through again, your values, just making sure that, that making that purchase would align with those values.
That sounds amazing. I have a specific question for you.
Yes.
About my big impulse shoppings. And I'm going to ask you how to fix it. But first, we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
All right. Are you ready for this question? I have a crazy thing when it comes to automobiles. Now, all these little things, they're not a big deal. You can get them in, you can throw them away. But when you impulse shop a car, it's a lot harder to get rid of because when you drive off the lot, it's just lost its value.
A lot of its value.
So, yeah, I'm really good. Like I've bought several cars just because I wanted something different than what I had. And I've always been someone who thinks 2 cars. I told you I'm a twofer person. 2 cars is better than one because if one breaks down, you have a backup and you don't have to beg. I hate begging off of anybody. So this one day, my husband was buying a new truck. He needed it. He's very frugal. He's very responsible. And he wanted me to come check it out. Well, while I was there, I fell in love with a Camaro. Beautiful orange. And it was, you sat in it and it had these beautiful orange seats and these beautiful lights that shined in. And I had to have it. I've told him, don't ever take me car shopping because I will always want to go home with something. So and I never had wanted a Camaro before. I never want one since, but it was so beautiful and I had to have it. I don't know why. How do you stop that one? Hey, we're already paying out lots of money for the other one. Why not just get 2?
Yeah. Oh, man. The first thing I would say about that is beyond the physical beauty of the product, right? Why did you need it?
Why did it?
Right.
Just pretty. I had no need for it. And then my husband had to start parking outside the garage because then I now took up both spots.
Yeah. Right. So that's definitely a matter of self-control, right? If you are unable to say no to yourself, it becomes a problem. So you find yourself impulse shopping candy bars and sodas at the grocery store, right? To bigger items like cars. I've never heard of that before. But I would definitely ask myself why. Why am I so intrigued? Like what about this makes me want to buy this? Like I said, beyond the physical. Ask yourself, why am I justifying this? Right? To your point, I've never wanted a Camaro before. But why is just the beauty of this car so stunning? Why wasn't there an option to perhaps
admire it from afar? Like I'd admired it at the lot and never brought it home.
Yeah. So I would say, you could rent a Camaro and have the experience of being in it. And sometimes experiences are so much better than physical things. You have the photos there, you have the memory there, you have this moment that you were able to create. And sometimes that in itself provides that satisfaction that you're looking for, right? That's what I would say about that. Just digging a little bit deeper to find out. And then, like I said, there's always the problem of not being able to say no to ourselves, right? We don't like when people say no to us. So why should I deprive myself of something that I want, right? So just checking that, checking yourself there, and starting with the little things. It doesn't have to start off with no to a big thing, but you want to be able to grow to the point where this muscle is strong. It is no to myself. That muscle is strong, and then figure out too why. Just discerning the difference between a want and a need, right? When you think about a need, you think about something that's essential, something that's perhaps important to live, to remain alive, right? Something that's important for your family. You would think of that as a need. And of course, when you think of a want, it's something more, of course, non-essential. But sometimes what we do is we make our wants needs, right? By justifying them. It's something that you want, but you have now justified it to be something that you need. My family can't live without this, or I can't live without this, right? And this is important for me to have. And so we've moved a case of soda, for example, right? We've moved it from the want to the need, when perhaps, I don't know, a bottle of juice might be a little bit, or a case of water, right? Would be a little bit more in the need category. So that's what we do. We to the point where there's no distinction anymore. You can't discern what is a need and what is a want. And I think that's also part of impulse spending. We have not flexed that muscle, just doing that little bit of extra work before we make that purchase. Am I going to put this in the cart, or am I going to keep it on the shelf? And that's literally what it boils down to.
And when you get to that need, technically, I don't need very much at all. I mean, but I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want, because I don't need to eat as much as we do, We are in America way more than even super healthy people eat more than we need. When you start talking need, I get down to the nitty gritty, but we want to be healthy. And technically we need to be healthy. So we need to eat a good diet.
Absolutely.
But when you start boiling it down to, do I really need this? That's a hard one, because I grew up very poor. I grew up without anything extra. I grew up giving up my babysitting money for my family's coats and shoes because my parents couldn't afford them. And I think there's a part in there of proving to myself that I can still do this. Like, I am not, and I don't want to prove to anybody else I'm not the poorest person on the block, but we lived in a middle class. So when I say poverty, it's not poverty. It was just the poorest people in the middle class area that we lived in. I have nothing to compare it to the more extreme poverty. But, I remember buying my first car and going away to college and leaving it for my family because it was our family's only car. And, it's just like my parents and their other 6 kids that were still at home needed it more than I did. And so, there's that balance of when you, it's that balance of what is a need and what is a want. And having a comfortable lifestyle for me is a need. I don't want to be without because I did it. I did it for too long. I had nothing. And so there's that big gap of I'm still trying to prove that it's okay. I don't. Yeah. So like, how do you make that balance switch? Because I think it's healthy to be more like my husband with the delayed gratification. I can't even see the words. Then I like my instant rewards. So there's that balance. The 2 years, no, you don't need to wait 2 years. But, I think there's that balance of where does it sit? And I'm learning. I'm going to get better. I'm way better than I used to be.
Oh, that's progress. Progress is good. And when you have, when you come from that place that you're speaking about, right? And I've seen this in talking to a lot of people. I've seen that some of the reasons why people impulse shop is along the lines of what you just said, but lower than you, right? So they've experienced poverty. They've experienced living in a smaller home with, lots of siblings. They've experienced a lot of hand-me-downs. They've experienced having to go without. So as an adult, a lot of what drove their spending habits was just no longer wanting to be in that place where they came from. And I can understand that totally. And sometimes, however, it can be a stumbling block for you when you are on this road to progress, right? And wanting to change, it can be a stumbling block if you are not paying attention to these mental triggers that are there, these emotional triggers that always bring you back to, well, I don't want to go without, or I don't want to have to choose, or, I have the money, so it's really okay. And so you have to pay attention to that, and you have to name it, and you have to realize that, hey, you're no longer in that position anymore. You're in a better position. You're in a position where you can be a blessing to yourself. And you're in a position where you can even be a blessing to other people, right? That's also an alternative to understand that but there are other people who are experiencing what you once experienced, right? And this could be, as you're moving in this journey from impulsive to intentional, this could be one of the intentional things that you do with your financial blessings. Instead of buying another unneeded, unplanned item, you can share this blessing with someone else, whether it's a less fortunate family in your neighborhood, whether it's a less fortunate family in your church, in your community, at your job. These opportunities present themselves all over. And this could be one of the intentional ways how you decide to use your money.
Yeah, I love that, because having that time of being a single mother and struggling, pushing myself through school and trying to balance work, kids in school and all that stuff, I was so blessed that there was a welfare system. I was so blessed that there were neighbors that wanted to help and that there were sub for Santas and all these things that I couldn't do for myself. That the second I got to a point where I was employed and I was making money, my kids and I have done sub for Santas for people because that's our way of repaying what we received when we were in such a huge need. And that's been a while because they're gone. But around here we have those angel trees and stuff that we still find a way to give. It's just not just us and just one family. But I know I feel better when I share the wealth.
Yes.
And I can participate and help other people who are just having a rough spot.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of this delayed gratification. So I'm going to commit to you that I will not. My Amazon's my vice because it's easy. I don't mind putting things in my cart, but they will sit there and make sure that I really need them for 3 days before I actually purchase them because Amazon will have them there overnight anyway. So I'll be the one waiting.
Yeah. What you can do too, when you put them in your cart, and let's say you've done the 3-day rule and you've come back and out of those 5 items, you're like, you know what? I don't need 3 of these. Add them to the save for later. Just hit save for later. And I do. It's in a different. Yeah. And and you know what? I do that too. And I forget that there are items there until I go back. I was like, wow, I can't believe I don't need that.
I don't need
that. Exactly. So
I love that. So we kind of learned about waiting, and really analyzing the need. And don't go to the extreme of we only need water, air, and shelter. There are other needs we have. So is it a need? And is it a need I need right now? What is the urgency of this need? And so those are the things that you kind of talked about up front. We are at the end of our time, but I would love for you to give us some last minute words of wisdom. Beyond those, you can even repeat the same 3 things. But is there additional things that you want to share besides those?
Yeah. So I want to share my framework and how to help you go through this roadmap. I'll share it very quickly. So the first is to review your cues. And we talked about that. What's creating these habits? What's allowing you to behave this way? So think about that, your emotional cues, right? And then you want to recognize your triggers, right? What are those external things that's causing the urgency, right? For you to purchase this thing. Is it a social media ad? Is it an influencer? Is it an email? Whatever it is, pay attention to those, right? So those 2 things will help you alone become very self-aware of what's happening to you before you make the purchase. And then once you realize that, then you'll have the opportunity to reset your habits, right? Reset your behavior, modify your behavior, and get you to a point where you are making different decisions, right? And finally, once you get those 3 things done, you'll realize that you'll have the opportunity to restore your self-control. And that's in this journey of going from impulsive to intentional. You start to think more deeply, think more critically, ask yourself other questions that will help you to manage making purchase decisions differently. And I would say too, once you're done with this, learn how to be content. Contentment is a huge part of impulse shopping. And you'll realize too that if you have an impulse spending habit, it's because there's something you're not satisfied about in your life, where you are, physical items. Just be on that journey. Start to experience gratitude by being deliberate about it. Use your things. Say thank you. Appreciate your things, and you'll reach contentment. And you'll realize that you no longer have this hold. Your emotions are no longer leading you. Your impulses are no longer leading you. You'll have self-control. You'll be more intentional.
I love that. I'm trying to remember the quote, and you probably know it. It's something about he who is content with little is much more rich than he who is not.
Yeah.
And it's being grateful for what we have. And I love the gratitude part. To me, I want to live a life of gratitude for everything. Even the struggles, I've got to be thankful for them because they make us stronger. They make us human. We're not superheroes. We're human. And so I love that. Makeda and I are not medical professionals. So ending words, listener, let's live a life of gratitude. And let's look for, I can't remember all three of them. There was being aware of the trigger. What was the first one?
Yeah. So review your cues,
Review the cues, be aware of the trigger, and then
reset your habit, and restore your self-control.
I could do that. It's so
Yes,
easy.
Yes, it is.
Oh, Makeda, thank you so much for joining us today. It has just been a pleasure. I know that this is definitely one I've been looking forward to, and you didn't disappoint at all. Thank you. And I know our listener is going to enjoy listening to you also.
Thank you so much.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.